Good morning to all, and I am not Mayor Crombie, but I am John Kovac, and I welcome all of you to the Council Chambers this morning for General Committee, and a welcome to all staff and those who are on the live stream who might be listening to the meeting. I'm going to be beginning with the Land Indigenous Statement. We acknowledge the lands which constitute the present day City of Mississauga as being part of the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Huron-Wendat and Wyandot nations. We recognize these peoples and their ancestors as peoples who inhabited these lands since time immemorial. The City of Mississauga is home to many global Indigenous peoples. As a municipality, the City of Mississauga is actively working towards reconciliation by confronting both our past and our present, providing space for Indigenous peoples within their territory to recognize and uphold their treaty rights and to support Indigenous peoples. We formally recognize the Anishinaabe origins of our name and continue to make Mississauga a safe space for all Indigenous peoples. Approval of the agenda, I will ask for a mover. Councillor Parrish, seconded by Councillor Hornick. All in favor? And that carries. Do we have a conflict of interest that needs to be declared by a member? Now would be that time. Okay. Seeing none, minutes of the previous meeting, moved by Councillor Mahoney, seconded by Councillor Reid. All in favor? That carries. We do not have any presentations this morning, but we do have a few deputations, and we will begin with item 7.1, which is Quinto Lejoy, local resident, regarding taxes. So Mr. Lejoy, if you'd like to come up right now and speak at the podium, you can choose either of the three microphones. We will hear you.
I'm sorry, I don't have an hearing aid, but if you speak a little louder, maybe I could.
So I was just saying,
That's
sir,
fine.
good morning. Thank you for being here. You have I should read this here. Members shall each have one opportunity to make a preamble statement and ask questions to the deputant, so that's members of council, or staff for clarification purposes only. And as a deputant, you have 10 minutes, which the members here will immediately trigger when you begin speaking.
It won't take quite that long.
Thank you.
Again, my name is Fonseca. My name is Quinto Lejoy. I live in 4215 Highgate Crescent. I've been living in Mississauga for 43 years. I was a financial advisor until 2 years ago when I got out of the business altogether. I will be 80 years old next month. And I have an accounting diploma. So I'm going to talk about numbers, and I think I know a little bit about numbers. In some cases, maybe a little bit more than all of you. I pay attention to the way the city spends, not just my tax dollar, but the City of Mississauga taxpayer tax dollars. Especially the last one that I noticed is on Miss Fonseca Street on Running Brook, which runs all the way from Tompkins to Bloor Street. I was told that that job cost $1.4 million to do. And I did use that street, and I still not so much now. I pick up my grandchildren or drop off my grandchildren at school. Why all that work needed to be done, it's beyond me. And why all the curbs from Tompkins to Bloor Street, and I mean all of them, need to be replaced. And $4 million, it's a heck of a lot of money for taxpayers. So my point is that I think maybe who is in charge of any department, the building, the road, maybe they should do a better job and spend the money more appropriately. And I have 3 examples to give. One my own street, one Tompkins, and one Burnathorpe. Not Tompkins, Running Brook. I'm going to just keep it on Running Brook. Why that street need to have every little bit of curb, and I mean every little bit replaced. I'd like to know the person that makes that decision to do that job. And like I said, I do drive on that street because my grandchildren's school, tour there anymore. So to see that there was a need for it, as a blind man, I don't see any need for all the work that was being done. That's number one. Number two, in my own street, 2014, 9 years ago, The job for, well, first I knew, I thought they were going to just resurface the street for around $70,000. When it was all said and done, over $250,000 were spent. For what? Some of it to replace, I have on the front of my house a sidewalk 1.5 meters wide, because there was no boulevard there, so the work department decided to do that. Oh, we're going to put a sidewalk that big. Unfortunately, in 2014, when they decided to redo that sidewalk, 75% of it, what it needed to be done, I have no idea. I only know that they spent just over $250,000 for that. And my street is not that big of a street. That's number two. Right on the same street, keeping it there, 3 or 4 months ago, there was some worker there replacing one section of a sidewalk, and I mean one. And four of them were sitting on what your guys, gentlemen and ladies, are sitting on right now, waiting for the cement truck, 4 of them, and 3 in the truck. So 7 people for a section of sidewalk. And then you say, well, the city's not paying them. And indirectly, you are. Directly, you're not, because their employer does. But 7 people to replace one section of the sidewalk, and they were sitting there for a while. So they're waiting for the cement truck. 7 people for one section of the sidewalk. The last example is on Bornathorpe. $8 million were spent there, $8 million. I'd like to know where. Some of them were spent to actually build a bike lane, and another spent around $1 million for the stoplight. $1 million for stoplight for a bike lane and I drive on Bornathorpe that I don't see anybody really using. $8 million is a hell of a lot of money for a lot of people. But I guess for the city it's not, because if each department run out, they know where to get it, right? Present the budget when it comes, just raise it. Like my property tax went up almost $500 last year. My old age pension sure I didn't go anywhere close to that. And a lot of people that are in the same age, they're probably in the same boat as I am. I don't qualify for a supplement, which is good that I do, because being a financial advisor, I knew how to invest a little bit of the money that I made when I was making them. So the city doesn't do nothing for me. I pay $745 a month right on. And $745 for most, and for most taxpayers, it's a heck of a lot of money to pay property tax. And I don't mind if I see that it's been spent properly. And from what I understand, the taxpayer, you ladies and gentlemen, are not doing a very good job of it. So to say that the status quo will continue, absolutely will. And I won't hold my breath. But I had to get my 5 minutes worth of my thing, and here I am to do that. And hopefully, like I say, I won't hold my breath because nothing will ever change. And when my property tax went up 6% last year, my old age pension didn't go anywhere close to that. And so do other seniors at my stage of life. So I shouldn't have to. You live at an age where you're supposed to be enjoying life somewhat. And I do. But if I have $1 left over, I don't want to say squander it to the city. I want to leave it for my wife and my grandchildren. Thank you for your time.
And thank you very much, sir, for your time. I'm going to turn the microphone over to Councillor Fonseca, who you did name earlier, who is the home councillor.
Ms. Fonseca lives on the street that they're working on it.
Thank you, through Mr. Chair. Good morning, Mr. LaJoy. First, I do want to say congratulations on your milestone birthday. That's amazing.
Next month,
80 years.
Next month.
I also wanted to say a big thank you as a longtime resident in the city of Mississauga, not only you and your family members. Obviously, you feel that the city of Mississauga is a great place to not only live, but to work and to raise your family. So a big thank you for investing your family in our city of Mississauga, as well as you and I have had many conversations, not only here at City Hall, but out on your street and in the Ward 3 community. And I want to say thank you for always challenging me with great questions and challenging me to look to ways that we can do better for families in the city of Mississauga. You asked, and you've raised these questions to me, and I remember when Highgate was being resurfaced, you asked these questions to me at that time. And also with Burnham Thorpe, when it was being redeveloped. So Burnham Thorpe is a major arterial that was being redeveloped, whereas local street like Highgate and Running Brook and other streets are local streets that are being resurfaced or in state of good repair and under our maintenance schedule. So I'm going to turn it over to staff to address the questions that you raised around the local streets and who is responsible for making the decisions on when and how the local infrastructure state of good repair is decided, and then also questions around Burnham Thorpe.
Thank you, Ms. Fonseca.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and in response to Councillor Fonseca, so there's a number of questions raised, Councillor Fonseca, from Mr. LaJoy, related to a number of projects, I guess, in Ward 3. And I was just going through my files previously on these projects and our engagement with the deputant in the past. So I'm happy to re-engage with Mr. LaJoy on these projects and go into sort of a bit more of a detailed review in terms of answering the question on why we make those decisions on the need for asset renewal and infrastructure replacement, specifically around road resurfacing projects. When we're also resurfacing the road, we also, go in and do an assessment of the curbs and whether or not those can remain or whether they should be replaced as part of that project from a cost efficiency perspective. But also the sidewalk replacement, we also go in and either repair or replace sidewalks as part of that project, in addition to our regular sidewalk program. So just in terms of my notes, we did provide Mr. LaJoy, some responses back in to the 2018 resurfacing of Burnham Thorpe, going back to the 2014 work on Highgate Crescent as well. So I have the residents' contact information, and I will reach out and suggest another follow-up discussion if that's satisfactory.
Thank you.
Okay, that's wonderful. I'm not seeing that there's anyone else on the board, but I'm happy to move receipt of the deputant. Mr. LaJoy, happy to coordinate you working offline with our Commissioner Wright and other staff. And with that, Mr. Chair, happy to move receipt.
Thank you, Councillor Fonseca and Mr. LaJoy. On behalf of all members of council and myself as well, happy early birthday to you and best wishes. We're just saying happy early birthday to you. Wonderful. That's wonderful. October 11th. Okay, the big day, October 11th. Wonderful. So we will need to, so all members of council will or have indicated that they support Councillor Fonseca's moving. So we will move on to 7.2. Is Kanisha Ahuja here, as well as Samantha Fung? Kanisha is Human Resources. Samantha is the founder of and director of Partnership and Development from Music for Every Child regarding their youth charity program. Good morning. Welcome. We see you all have matching gear. That's cool. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so our logo was designed by some animators who helped us, and it's just rainbow our organization helps children with special needs, so it represents the spectrum, the autism spectrum, and yeah, there's a music note because we provide music therapy for children with special needs.
That's great. It kind of sort of symbolizes your unity as well. So thank you. You do have 10 minutes, and you're welcome to begin.
Yeah, so I just wanted to start by saying hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. We are Music for Every Child, an entirely youth-led charity that's led by full-time students. So my name is Kanisha, and I'm a high school student in Mississauga in Ward 11.
Hi, my name is Jeremy. I'm going to grade 11, and I've been living in Ward 8 for about 8 years now.
And my name is Samantha. I'm also a grade 10 student in Mississauga. I've been living here my whole life, and I'm also in Ward 8. Okay, so I'd just like to start off by thanking Mayor Bonnie Crombie and the city for supporting our organization before we even had anything to show for. So you believing in us really has helped us so much to get to where we are today.
Hello, Mayor Bonnie Crombie here from the great city of Mississauga, and I'd like to thank the outstanding team of volunteers, leadership and staff from Music for Every Child for the work they do in supporting children living with special needs by raising awareness and providing access to music therapy.
And now I'd like to start with a little background story. So I first got the idea to start Music for Every Child when I was volunteering in the special needs program at my school. So working with these kids really inspired me and gave me a passion to help them, but when the pandemic hit, I was no longer able to volunteer in person. On top of that, me and my friends all experienced a lot of struggles with virtual learning and all the lockdowns, but knowing that children with special needs didn't even have the opportunity to learn online, I knew that even though I couldn't volunteer in person anymore, I needed to find another way I could help these students who really needed it. So Music for Every Child really just started as a thought in a little girl's head, and now it's become an organization dedicated towards youth mobilization, helping children with special needs and raising awareness for these students. So a couple milestones we're so proud of achieving over the past 2 years includes engaging over 200 youth volunteers, fundraising over $75,000, and running over 300 music therapy sessions. So through all of our work, we've gotten a lot closer to the community and forged a lot of partnerships, which make our organization sustainable. And for our work in sustainability and the development of Canada, we received the Canadian Sustainable Development Goals Award.
Hi, my name is Karina Gould, and I am the Minister of Families, Children, and Social Development. I want to thank you for your energy, your ideas, and your action to help us reach our sustainable development goals. To the winners, you are taking extraordinary steps to help Canada advance the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Your initiatives are making concrete strides towards reducing barriers for underserved youth, advancing education equity, and strengthening supports for children with developmental disabilities.
I'd like to present that we're so proud of receiving is the Diana Award, named after Princess Diana of Wales, who believed that young people can change the world.
It's a pleasure to be here today celebrating the incredible achievements of young people who embody the spirit of the Diana Award. When someone steps up to be of service, they automatically join this collective. No one is ever a conduit for change alone. Each one of us has the ability to help create a more equitable world. And the brilliant award recipients we're honouring today are proof of that.
Every single one of the young people we are celebrating today have been on their own unique journey, driven by their own passions, perspectives, and life experience. The road to making a difference is not always easy, but as we celebrate the impact they have made, we are reminded that no challenge is insurmountable.
Yeah, so now that we've talked a little bit about what our organization is about, we just wanted to show you a small animation that showcases how much music therapy actually helps special needs students.
What are you doing, Jack? Did you like the cooking class earlier?
La 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 la.
This is fun. Music therapy involves people singing, listening, playing, and dancing to help them become better learners.
Let's go.
like that, eh?
So as you can see, music therapy really does make the special needs students a lot happier. And so we started with our first music therapy session here in Mississauga at Dolphin Senior Public School. And since then, we've expanded a lot. And actually this year, we'll be funding 11 schools across Ontario. So we're super proud of that achievement. But unfortunately, we still only work with one school in Mississauga. And so we really hope to connect with more schools through the city, and if they could recommend us some other programs that might be interested. And so other than working with this community, we've also worked a lot with our own community, and especially youth volunteers. So we've engaged them in a lot of fundraising since we don't have a lot of funds or grants, so we've been doing a lot of events this past summer. And we find that fundraising is a great way to connect us with the people of the community, and it just helps us create funds as well, so yeah.
All right, so since we have received limited resources and funding now, we've reached the maximum amount of schools that we can fund, even though our program is still in really high demand, with a lot of schools in Toronto and Mississauga requesting for our services. So in order to provide more music therapy for schools, we've started to partner with local organizations to help them get in touch with the school of choice and provide funding for music therapy. This has proven to be a sustainable model as the organizations have received a heightened connection with their community. And so far, we've partnered with Futures Gymnastics and Gymnastics Mississauga. All right, next slide. All right, now I want to discuss further ways of helping this organization expand. So first, we've received very minimal media coverage, even though we believe that it's a really pressing issue and an important one that should be addressed. So we are looking for a lot of opportunities to spread our reach into that branch. And we are also looking to find some more local organizations that are willing to partner with us and help establish a connection within their community, and overall leading to a more interconnected world. All right, so that's the end of the presentation. So we'd just like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak here, because it's very cool. And we ask that if you want to get in touch with us further, contact the email above. And if you want to receive updates on what we are currently doing, then we have an Instagram page, which you should follow. It's pretty cool. And yeah, just once again, we want to thank you for the opportunity.
I think we can tell, judging by the applause, we were all very impressed and quite taken with your presentation. So thank you for coming forward this morning and telling us quite a bit about what you guys are all about. Thank you to Music for Every Child. We do have a few members of council, beginning with Councillor Mahoney, who would like to address you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for coming. I mean, I don't think you have to thank us. That's really inspiring. I mean, really, really impressive, and something that we didn't know. And I can certainly tell you that I'd be more than happy to sit down with you and see how I can help, move this issue forward. I mean, it really is inspiring, and of course, youth can change the world. Youth can make a difference, and the fact that you're here today addressing us and so eloquently and speaking in passion of what you've done is certainly impressive. So I really just want to thank you and offer to sit down and meet with you and see how I might be able to help, and I'm sure some of my colleagues will as well. I see Councillor Parrish on the board. She's the #1 fundraiser in Canada here, so I'm just kidding. But I think we all would be happy to do it, and I really want to congratulate you for taking this initiative and doing this on your own. And it's something that really is making a difference. And I think the fact that you are making a difference is something that you should be very, very proud of. So I'm extremely pleased that you came here today, and just want to lend my helping hand and let you know that perhaps we can connect, and I can connect with you after, and we can set up a time to sit down and see if I can help. And happy to put you in touch with maybe the school board trustee or others to see how we can work together to expand this program, because it certainly is inspiring, and I do again just want to congratulate you. So we'll connect after, and then we can maybe sit down and see how we can work together to help elevate and build this program. And again, congratulations, really, really impressive. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for that. And Councillor Parrish.
Well, I'm going to start off by obviously thanking you very much. I'm extremely impressed. I do fundraisers, and it's very satisfying when you see all that money come rolling in and you know you're going to put it to good use. I'm going to offer you a location in Malton. It's the new youth hub up there. No adults allowed, no old people. I can't even go in there. But it's a fabulous building. It's opening in October. They have a huge 2-story atrium, and they're looking for programs like this. And they have small rooms. They have a recording studio. So I'm going to give your email to Pat McNaughton, who is the manager of the hub, and she'll get in touch with you, and you can sit down with her and talk about using that space, because it's going to be the busy location. The board of directors is all students, half of them from Lincoln, half of them from Ascension. They've made every decision in that hub, and they would love to have you guys in there. We have Sheridan going in to do free programming for adults. We'll let them in for this, 18 to 24, to complete their secondary school diplomas, no charge. So we're doing those kinds of programs there. It's a dream come true for me. It was an old swimming pool that died, and it's now been converted by about $13 million into a real showpiece. So I'll get Pat to arrange a tour for you up there, and you can sit down with her and talk about how you can work in that space and how much of it you want to use. So you've got that spot today, and then we'll talk about fundraising later.
Thank you so much.
That's great. And Councillor Fonseca.
Yep. Thank you, through Mr. Chair. Thank you so much for the three of you for being here. I echo what the other councillors have said. You're truly inspiring, and if you hadn't come today and made the effort, we wouldn't even know that you exist. Unfortunately, as you said, one of the challenges is just getting the word out and the messaging out, and connecting and networking is extremely important. So what you have on your last slide, when words fail, music speaks, I agree with you completely, 100%. I have been involved in music, in classical music, since I was very young, and inspired by students like yourself in a community where I grew up. Students like yourself did exactly what you're doing, offering and mentoring and offering music therapy and music lessons to so many different individuals in the community. I currently sit on the MSO, and I would love to, and I will offer and love to connect with you and connect the MSO board and the Mississauga Youth Symphony board, or Mississauga Youth Symphony and the Mississauga Symphony Orchestra offer up having a presentation that would be available to not only the MSO and the MSYO, but also other ways that we could expand and provide supports through you, for you, as a not-for-profit that's working to spread everything good about music. So happy to do that. And there are a number of other organizations that I have connection with, countless, that I'm happy to work with you offline on to ensure that you are connected with them. Thank you for being here.
Okay, Councillor Dasco.
Thank you through the chair, and thank you very much for coming today. Very inspiring. It's absolutely amazing. We launched off the city actually as a music city just over a year ago, and some great things are happening. And what you're doing, it's pretty inspiring stuff. And you know, I think as you've been hearing around council table here, we're all willing to throw in a hand and help nurture and grow what you're doing, because it's important. It also is very stimulating, and I think most of us, no matter what age you are, you remember certain aspects of your life from music. And so this is really significant. What I might suggest is if you can actually send some contact information for us on council. I'll speak for myself. I'd very much like to sit down and go through what some of the opportunities might be for you, just to get out there a little bit more and help some folks, because a lot of what you do, it's some great therapy. So keep up the great work, and I'd love to connect with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Councillor Hornick.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for coming here today. You know, what great work you do is very inspiring. Just texting with a trustee from the Board of Education, she recommended you see the Special Education Committee and deputate to them. So if you're looking to get into more schools in Mississauga, which would be a wonderful thing, the Special Education Committee within the Public Board would be where you'd want to head. Happy to put you in touch with that trustee or other trustees. And, you know, certainly take my colleagues and I up on the offers of, you know, we're wonderful connectors within the community to, you know, find places where you can best serve. I would also say on my side, Erin Oaks Kids, you know, you're nodding your heads, you obviously know the organization, right? Wonderful organization that helps all sorts of children with all sorts of challenges. And they could always use more people to come and help, because I know the need is great. So thank you for all you do, and please keep up the great work.
Thank you.
And Councillor Reid.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation. That was so inspiring. And I just wanted to highlight the fact that in one of your earlier slides, you said you had over 200 youth volunteers. That is awesome. It's one thing to do the work, the three of you, but when you can get more people involved and more students to see your vision, that is awesome. So kudos to all of you for that. I'm so excited that you're at Future Gymnastics. That's in Ward 9. So let's see if we can get you guys going in some other areas. And what Councillor Hornick was saying about the school board trustees and the appeal board and all the other areas, like if we could support you guys and amplify your work in any way, we're more than happy to do that. So congratulations, and I'm already following you on Instagram too, so there you go.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Reid. I'm just going to see if our Commissioner, Jody Robles, has any comment to provide. I think she does. So, Commissioner?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. It's a great timing that this organization is here today. We are getting ready to launch our community grant application program for next year. So we would be happy to sit down with the representatives to talk through the city grant process. And it's absolutely excellent timing. I'm just looking at approving the information to go out. So we have a bunch of different streams: small project matching grants, community grants, cultural grants, music grants as well. So we'll be happy to connect with the organization and get them in the queue.
That's great. So really good timing. You'll want to take Commissioner Robles' card before you leave. Please do that. And what can we say about music? We all enjoy it. I feel like it's the most unifying language in the world, and you could experience it vibrationally. So not only is it a expressive tool where you can express yourself in a creative way, but working with children, I think we've all seen how it can really work. It can really work very well. And I'm reminded of Councillor Butt would agree with me in Ward 11. There's an area, Luso-Canadian Charitable Society, and that's located on 6245 Mississauga Road. They do a lot of work with the youth and those in particular who are in a bit of need of help, and they use music all the way through. And just going out there and seeing how the children and youth immediately come to it and express them. It's really a way for them to express themselves, and it's touching being there in the flesh and seeing that. So thank you again to the group. Very well done, and make sure you take Jody's card on the way out. Like to move Councillor Reid or Councillor Butt. All in favor? That carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move on. Yes. 7.3, Kim Pines, if she is here. Kim is the president of translations.ca, and she is here regarding language matters as it relates to communications from the city.
Good morning, councillors. Language does matter. It's a fundamental aspect of human interaction that transcends borders, cultures, and backgrounds. Language barriers have a profound impact on communication and community. It is the cornerstone of our ability to convey thoughts, emotions, and ideas. It can either unite us in understanding or divide us in misunderstanding. And that's what I'm here to speak to you about today. Wouldn't it be nice if we could read these? But if you arrived in a new country and didn't speak or read the language, would you feel comfortable? Or perhaps would you feel anxious or even scared? Would you know how to use the transit? Would you know how to use 311? Would you even know that if you call 311, you have an interpretation service available? Probably not unless someone tells you. What about local laws? Would you know that jaywalking is illegal? My name is Kim Pines. I spent almost 40 years in the language field, specialized in marketing and advertising. I've been president of translations.ca for 32 years. I'm a longtime board member, past chair of communications, and currently treasurer for the Canadian Language Industry Association. Along with many of my colleagues from the Canadian Language Industry Association, I am a business member of the Language Access Coalition of Canada, a group advocating for the right for information and services in language people can understand, not just official languages. Similar to ISO standards, Canada develops their own quality assurance standards. I'm also a technical expert on the Standards Council of Canada's technical committee that developed and is currently revising the national standard for translation services. I've lived in Mississauga for 25 years in Ward 3. The strategic pillar for Belong, developed in 2009, states where immigrants are welcomed and their cultures become a visible part of the city fabric. I wish to share some observations with you. Over the last several years, I've attended several community meetings for such things as micromobility, Dundas Connects, the Bloor Street Integrated Project, Delta Bingo, as long as with other organizations like Peel Police. I've answered numerous city surveys, the most recent being on the naming of public parks and streets. Sometimes after meetings, attendees are asked to provide feedback, which I've done. I usually point out the limited communication methods used to inform people about the meetings, and I also point out that the meetings are entirely in English. Instead of fostering a feeling of inclusiveness and belonging, newly arrived residents, and even some people that have been here a while, are not likely going to attend these meetings due to language barriers. It's time to revisit this pillar. As you know, the city has a large group of residents who don't speak or read English as their first language. Imagine if you could reach 30% more of your residents. I borrowed this slide from the Language Access Coalition of Canada. Accessible language is a language that accommodates people of all ages and abilities, including those with disabilities, those of low literacy skills, and speakers of English as a foreign language. It provides people with reasonable access to the same services as English-speaking individuals. This is key. Many nations, including Canada, may not deliberately discriminate. But if broader language access is not pursued or made available, individuals are being excluded and discriminated against based on their language comprehension and fluency. The City of Mississauga does have a Google Translate button, although it's buried down on the bottom of the page. Most websites usually have it at the top. However, and this only translates your interface. It doesn't translate the hundreds of PDFs that you have on the website, except for one I found, which was the fire safety pamphlet. The newcomer page on the website is in English only. The video on the newcomer page is in English only. Surely this is one page that you could translate. The page recommends newcomers visit agencies like the Dixie Bloor Neighborhood Center if they need help understanding the website. That's assuming they understood your webpage. Some newcomers may do so, but many may not for a variety of reasons. For example, they may not want to attend the social agency because of their inability to speak English. And the rest of the city communications is usually in English only. Portable signs, electronic billboards, newspaper ads, social media, it's all in English. Councillors' newsletters, emails also tend to be in English only. However, I did find a newsletter just recently from Stephen Dasko that had the Google Translate automatically appear at the top of his newsletter. Kudos to you. Moving on to plain language, I'm sure you've heard about this. The need for clarity and simplicity in readability is extremely important. Otherwise, the message is lost. It is a disservice to the writers and the readers if the message is missed. The Accessibility Advisory Committee mandate is to review municipal policy, programs, and services to make the city more accessible to all citizens. Accessibility strategies and development include language barriers. Mississauga, with its multicultural population, could become a leader in nurturing diverse cultures and languages by providing better access. A friend recently told me a story about how she was digging her garden and said to her neighbor, "Geez, these roots and weeds are a pain in the butt." Her neighbor, in broken English, shook his head and said, "I don't understand. Why do you have a pain in the bottom?" Speakers of English as a second language often interpret everything literally. Looking at my examples above, while the postcard for Bloor Street is changing is pretty simple, changing is too vague, and the importance of the message was lost. If I look at the frequently asked questions, crossrides. I don't even know what a crossride is. Pavement rehabilitation, basically, I assume you mean repaving. Vision Zero. Well, someone might think that that has something to do with blind people and has nothing to do with them. New signalized pedestrian crossing. Could that just not be crosswalk with lights? Know your readers, know who you're writing for. Even safety goals like Vision Zero can be better met if residents are informed in their own language about traffic safety. For example, jaywalking. In my ward, I drove Bloor Street for 25 years, and I cannot tell you the number of times I saw people jaywalking. I think I had a heart attack because I'd see mothers with strollers nowhere near an intersection crossing the street at 5:30 and it's dusk. Why do they do this? Maybe no one told them jaywalking is not legal here. And it's likely in their home country, it's quite a common practice. Like the fire safety pamphlet, there's some information that is too important not to translate. Think about creating a small booklet, Intro to Mississauga, with basic information about how and when to use 311, how crosswalks work, what happens when you call 911. From this translated booklet, you could direct newcomers to the social assistance agencies that you refer to on your website. Or you could even tell them, hey, our website's accessible if you use Google Translate. The City of Toronto has something similar that they are currently working on. They have it in 4 languages right now, and it looks like they're going to translate it into approximately 10. There's another issue that can partially be attributed to language barriers: fear of police and government. Collecting signatures for a petition recently, it was clearly apparent to me many individuals are carrying over their fear of government and police from their native country. Some were terrified to add their name to any list. Going back to the strategic pillar, belong. If they are never addressed in a language they can understand from their local government where they live, they may never feel welcomed, comfortable, or part of our community. While fear is not necessarily a responsibility of the city, councillors and staff should be aware of and try alternative methods to communicate with residents. Some will work, some won't. Experiment. Just know that any attempt is better than no attempt, and it's usually greatly appreciated. Don't worry, I'm on my last page. Technology and software has changed significantly in the last few years, offering many new options to communicate. For example, a quick click on a button and I could have English or foreign subtitles translating automatically as I'm speaking live. There are many ways to manage costs as well. There is no quick fix. Start small, incorporate some languages, and expand from there. I simply ask that Council be more aware of language barriers and take steps to improve language access for all its citizens. Let's strive to break down the walls of language barriers and fortify the bridges of communications. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kim. I have two members of council who would like to provide comment, beginning with Councillor DeMerla and then Councillor Fonseca.
Thank you, Chair. And Kim, thank you for being here and your passionate advocacy. You make some interesting points, and the one that really I strongly agree with is when I first got elected many years ago, and I started to interact with government, I realized very quickly there's actually a new language. It's called governmentese, like the language is. I couldn't believe, and not only is it written a certain way, but I realized that it's spoken too. There's actually spoken governmentese when in formal meetings people would speak. And I was, do you actually have to go and how do you learn to speak like that? Because the words used, and it's very interesting. And I have ever since tried my very best whenever I have an opportunity, say as an example, if someone writes a quote for me, or less so here at City Hall, but more so when I was at Queen's Park or speeches, I'd be like, no one speaks like this, can we not just speak in plain English? So very good point that you make, and you had some great examples, wear reflective clothing, just wear bright clothes. Like, I just don't understand why we can't just say traffic lights, why we have to say signalized intersection. I'm looking at the Commissioner of Transportation. I mean, those are probably the correct words, but, I wouldn't say I stopped at a signalized intersection. I'd say I stopped at a traffic light, right? So it would help if we all kind of move towards that. So I'm with you on that, and it's the one thing I try to do is when I do my newsletters, often staff in my office will take whatever information blurb has come from city staff and copy and paste, and then I will go in and try and make it into simpler English. So it's a very good point, and maybe we can all take that home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor DeMerla. Councillor Fonseca.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you so much for being here, Kim. Great to see you here. Thank you.
I apologize I used your ward, but I'm in your ward, so that's most of my communication.
Absolutely, not a problem. As I said to Mr. LaJoy, who was here, I always appreciate when residents challenge me to do better, and it's the same with communication. As Councillor DeMerla has said, you've raised some excellent points. You've also said that what is really important is to ensure that we are trying to get out and communicate in different ways. I've taken what you've said here in terms of Ward 3 to heart, to try to do better, to communicate in different languages. I have tried communicating in person, at meetings in person, virtually, obviously. Lessons learned, especially through the pandemic. And what you have said here about, it's not only about communicating out when a meeting is happening, but also what is that meeting actually about and how does it impact the residents. So I definitely have taken that to heart. You've brought up a lot of important points with regards to the terms of reference of our committees that we have. You referenced Accessibility Advisory Committee. We have a number of committees where when we do the interviews for those committees, perhaps we should be looking at including in one way or another, not just for accessibility advisory, but for our diversity and inclusion, our traffic safety, our road safety, all of the committees, challenging ourselves to see how we can communicate those messages out to the greater population in the city of Mississauga in different ways. One thing that we have done, and it has been a point of discussion at budget time, is budgeting, connecting with different cultural groups through their media. So whether it be through social media, whether it be through hard print like newspaper media, you live in Ward 3, and if you've gone into the Polish Plaza, which you probably have, the Wisla Plaza, there is a newspaper there where I myself have contributed through the Ward 3 budget to their newspaper, but that's only one of many. And as councillors here around the table, we've had discussion about how we can communicate to the different groups, different cultural groups that are in our city, and get the message across to them, whether it's inviting them to meetings, whether it's inviting them to ask questions through those different media channels in their own language. And at the same time, through our newcomer or agencies, like as an example, in Ward 3, we've got Dixie Bloor Neighborhood Center, which is a settlement services. So how can we communicate better to newcomers, but not only newcomers, also established residents that are in our community. So I'm not seeing, I didn't actually have a question directly, but maybe to staff, I'm not sure if you can respond to some of Kim's questions around communication and how we can, through our through the city website, how we could, or the city public forums, how we could communicate better. Maybe I'll hand it over to staff, and then after that, I'm happy to move receipt of Kim's deputation.
Thank you, Councillor Fonseca. I think we'll turn it over to the city manager, Sherry Lichterman.
Thank you, through the chair, to the councillor and the deputant. I think what we'll do is we'll certainly take the deputation and refer it back to our communications team. The timing is good as well, because we're launching into the update of our strategic plan, and we're really looking at creative ways to get out into the community and really make sure that we have great engagement on that initiative, as well as all of the regular ones that she noted. So we'll take this back to the communications team. We are always striving to improve and to take a look at how we communicate, especially with some of the newcomers in our community. So thanks very much.
That's great. Thank you for that, Madam CAO. And perhaps we could use a bit more music in our communications as well. Somehow, somewhere, I'm sure Kanisha Ahuja would agree with me. Thank you for that. So next up is public question period. Although we should move receipt. Councillor Fonseca, all in favor? Carrying. Thank you again, Kim, for being here. So public question period. Do we have any members here in the audience who would like to come up and address council? I was informed beforehand that we don't have any pre-registered persons, so if there's anyone sitting here in the chamber that would like to do so, now would be your opportunity to address council or general committee for 5 minutes. Okay, looks like then we do not have any takers, so we will move past public question period and on to the consent agenda. We have a couple of items under matters to be considered, beginning with 10.1, 2023 business improvement areas, tax levy bylaw amendment. Anyone would like to hold that for discussion? Councillor Parrish, maybe? No? Okay, item 10.2, streamlined development approval fund. It's a final report. Does that look enticing enough? Okay. So no. On to advisory committee reports. Item 11.1, Mississauga School Traffic Safety Action Committee Report 5-2023, dated June 28, 2023. Okay. Item 11.2, Environmental Action Committee Report 4-2023, dated July 4, 2023. Okay, seeing none. 11.3, Mississauga Cycling Advisory Committee Report 3-2023, dated July 11. And item 11.4, Accessibility Advisory Committee Report 5-2023, dated July 24. Okay, on consent. 11.5, Heritage Advisory Committee Report 7-2023 dated July 25. Also on consent. So we will now take a recorded vote on the consent agenda, moved by Councillor Mahoney, seconded, we don't need a seconder, all in favor? And I will go to Councillor McFadden as well. This will be recorded, so everybody vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, yes.
Thank you, Councillor McFadden. And all in favor, that is unanimous. We do not have any correspondence items. Under 13, matters pertaining to Region of Peel Council. If anyone would like to bring up any Region of Peel related issue, now would be the time to do so. Okay, seeing none. On to Councillors' inquiries. Councillor Tejo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A question for, I guess, corporate services and legal. I've had a few concerning emails and phone calls from some residents who have seen what I will call as the anti-LGBTQ plus protests around the city throughout the summer. Some of them have been using the space in Celebration Square, and then our corporate security has been putting them onto more public property like Burnthorpe. And I want to explore the idea, as I saw something similar happen in Oakville a number of years ago when there were anti-abortion protests happening. Obviously, I understand people have the freedom of speech and they are allowed to display images and words that can be very offensive to a number of people. However, I saw in the town of Oakville that the town had taken the initiative to put up displays on the roadway ahead of those protests when they knew it was coming, in order to just warn people, please be cautious, there is sensitive material coming ahead, or there are concerning messages coming ahead. It didn't stop them from obviously displaying their messages, but it was a warning to people who might be triggered by what I will say is pretty insensitive messaging directed at a very specific community that you know, could border on hate speech. So I don't know if there's an opinion there or a thought in terms of how we could do something like that, or if there are tools that we have in our tool belt already.
So through the chair, Councillor Tejo, you are correct that this does trigger freedom of expression rights protected under the Charter, and it's always tricky when we're dealing with protests. And Celebration Square, it's the public square. It's exactly the type of area that the Charter protects around freedom of expression. In terms of having advanced warning signs, that's a new concept for me. So I suggest that we take that back. We work with security and legal to think about that. But we do have a pretty well-established protocol with security about how we deal with protests themselves. But let's take that particular question back.
Thank you, appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And on to Councillor Dasco.
Thank you through the chair. And I've just got a few things I'm wondering if we might be able to look into. I guess one of the byproducts from the pandemic has found ways for people to get out into the community and for others to maybe make a couple of dollars, and that's all fine. But had a few issues come up recently with regards to an app called Swimply, and that's people that are renting out their backyard swimming pools. And I'm just wondering if maybe direction to staff, if we could have something come back in the same vein as things like the people renting out their places like for Airbnb, etc. Because I think this is something that, at least for now, is here, and it's a bit of a gray area for people. I've got one significant issue: people coming back asking, how can this be permitted, etc. And we don't really have any concrete bylaws on this, so if that could get looked at.
Yes, through the chair, we can just to review that app and look at the possibilities around it. So we will certainly bring it back to you.
Okay, thanks, Raj. And the other is we have an ongoing issue, from my understanding, and I've seen, and I also mentioned it to Councillor Reid. I'll call out here as well, because the automated speed enforcement cameras, as they get set up in different areas, we're finding a lot of them are getting vandalized and sometimes knocked over. And I mentioned Councillor Reid because he actually took a video of trying to actually put one back up, and it was so heavy that he was not able to put it back up. And this comes from probably the strongest guy on council here. That goes to show us something. But I'm wondering if maybe we could take back and talk to the vendor to see if they're able to possibly relocate these things onto poles, or if there's some other mechanism that we could do, because they seem to be getting hit on a pretty frequent basis. And quite frankly, they're an eyesore in the community as well.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and to Councillor Dasco. So, Councillor, yes, we have obviously been dealing with this issue since the start of the ASE program. The vendor technology for the cameras is the one that's used right now for ASE and camera enforcement. And it is, part of the program from a mobile perspective in terms of the ability to move these cameras around. So a permanent installation is not the type of program that we have currently, but one that we can look forward to potentially in the future. But as an interim step, yes, we have been working with the vendor to try and provide some level of encouragement to come up with a more, secure installation of the temporary ASE camera. I know the vendor is looking at options to have that location, better integrated with the ground and perhaps some different anchoring systems. So I will provide an update, and you're not the only councillor that has reached out on this issue. I know Councillor Mahoney and I were having a conversation prior to the start of this meeting on that very same issue. So why don't I provide an update to council just on our work with the vendor and how they and us are working to try and make a more secure ASE camera.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Mahoney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is really why I'm on the board, and I did have a conversation briefly with Commissioner Wright beforehand. So obviously it is a bit of an issue. I've got one particular street that I think it's been knocked over about 18 times. And if Councillor Reid can't lift it, none of us can. And I think it was me and 5 seniors that lifted the one on Sawmill Valley up to put it back in place. And believe me, they are heavy. But in talking to the residents there, and again, I mentioned this to Jeff, they're asking about CCTV cameras on the schools, and reached out to the school principal in that particular area, and they've reached out to the school board, but it's a police and school board issue more than it is a city issue, because the cameras would be on the school. But then perhaps we could put signs up to say that it's being monitored by cameras. These things could probably happen. The vendor did have stakes that they found. I guess they sourced out some stakes that they could put down. Unfortunately, I guess if you have a couple of people pushing, the stakes don't work either. So certainly need to look at some solutions. Maybe it's being more stationary or chained up, or working with the school boards to be able to do it, because it certainly is frustrating, for residents when every morning when they wake up it's knocked over, or those types of things do happen. So I'll reach out to you, Jeff, offline and give you the contact information with the school board, and perhaps we can connect with the police and see if there's an opportunity there. Again, even if there's signage up to say that this is being monitored, I think that might be helpful. And if the schools were able to approve these cameras to be able to shine on them, maybe it's a solution. But it's a problem we deal with, all of us deal with regularly, and it's not going to go away unless we find a solution. And I know it's on the vendor to find the solution, but anything we can do to look at outside of the box ideas to help keep those things in place, because I know the cameras are working. We've seen reduction in 7 kilometers in the school zones, and a number of other statistics that I can't remember right now, but I'll reach out offline, Jeff, and we can connect on that and see if we can move it forward. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Parrish.
Yes, mine isn't a jolly one. As you recall, about a month ago, a cyclist was killed on Airport Road. I've been out looking at Airport Road. We have, between Airport and Derry, 5,000 big transport trucks a day. I wouldn't bike on Derry if somebody wrote me a check for $1 million. But Airport is doable, and I'm wondering, Commissioner Wright, if I prepare a proper motion or meet with you, if we could look at just putting an off-road biking trail on one side of Airport where there's a huge boulevard. There's no businesses, it's mostly backyard fences, and get people off that, it's off Airport. A lot of them bike over to Brampton to work over Steeles. And it was really sad, and it's not the first one. We've had several over the years. And the fact that we seem to be not doing anything about it kind of bothers me a lot. So maybe we have a meeting.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Parrish, yes, of course, and these are very tragic events, and we certainly provide our sympathies to the family from this incident. It's very heartbreaking. Yes, of course, we, as part of our Vision Zero action plan, we review every incident that occurs on our roadways, and in this situation, under our current jurisdiction, this would be under Peel Region's jurisdiction, but that doesn't stop us from working on this issue. So what I would suggest, councillors at Peel staff and Mississauga meet with you to walk through, where the location was and opportunities for road safety improvement.
See, I'm already thinking we don't belong to Peel anymore. And I go right to the man that can fix it. And that side of the road, I don't think you'd be moving any pipes, there'd be no wiring, there'd be nothing. It would just be a raised concrete trail. So yeah, I'll get my office to arrange that with you. Thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Demerla.
This new system I have to get used to. Thank you. The issue I wanted to raise was around cricket, and I'm going to start by saying I know the future directions has mention of increasing investments in cricket, so I just want to say I do know that. That said, I also want to thank staff because a group came forward wanting to host the International Women's Cricket in Mississauga, and staff worked really fast to give them dates. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to hold it despite the dates working out, and that's because the grounds are not of the standard that you could hold an international, cricket tournament. But what was really interesting was that staff said that the issue is that, so the organizer said, okay, well, we'll move it to next year. And staff said, even if you moved it to next year, we cannot guarantee you that it would be of an international standard because other groups use it, and it's used so heavily that there's no time for staff to fix, the bald spots in the grass and all of that. It just sort of made me wonder, Brampton's just very successfully positioned itself for cricket in men's cricket, and it's a growing sport, and it's very clever because, whether it's Mississauga, whether it's Brampton, we're all trying to carve out identities independent of Toronto. So we're never going to get, say, international hockey or football or all of that. That's taken by Toronto. But I think we have the ability to corner the market in some of these newer sports. So while we wait for future directions to sort of, make those investments, I guess I'm going to work offline with staff as well, but I want to make sure that next year we find a way that the quality of the grass can be, maintained so we can hold a tournament. I get the logistical issue. The way I understand it is because it's used by so many groups, staff just don't have the time to fix it. Well, then how does Brampton do it? Or is there a solution to this? I'm just putting it on our radar because it would be a shame if we lost the opportunity next year as well.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor. We have hosted international level tournaments. We've hosted them at Red Brush, Iceland. We've hosted them most recently featured on City TV up at Courtney Park. So I think there's maybe some different interpretations of what groups are looking for. When you are starting to talk about the natural wickets and maintaining it at a certain level, there are some things that are a preference rather than a requirement. And so I would say we have hosted those type of tournaments before, but it's to the level of expectation of an individual group. If we're talking about, I think in this case, it was really the natural turf and how the expectation was to be maintained. There is a significant amount of work that goes into that. We are building 2 additional cricket pitches right now, one at Park 459, Mattamy Sports Park, and one up in Ward 5 in Councillor Parrish's area is on the books. So we have 2 on the books right now, but it's that balance of community sport versus hosting a tournament sport. So we're happy to meet with that group because, again, we host G20 tournaments. We've hosted a lot of international tournaments. So, you know, maybe it's just how we talk about those expectations. So happy to work offline.
Thank you, and that's fair. And I guess I like the way you positioned it. So there's the community use, and yes, more investments for community use. But maybe it's, you know, as part of future directions, do we take a stand and say, you know, Mississauga is going to carve out a spot for itself, independent of Toronto or whatever, and this is our niche. And maybe it's not women's cricket, maybe it's something else, but definitely cricket would be great. Women's cricket would be amazing because it's two birds with one stone, women's and cricket, both emerging, playing. So anyway, we can keep talking, but to bridge the gap between community use and then that international standards. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Demerla. And if I may ask of staff, there are a couple of issues that have arisen in my community, and maybe it has in others as well throughout the city. In fact, I'm sure it has, but essentially what I would like to do is ask for a report from Planning and Building that would outline the history of the policy change regarding backyard accessory buildings, clarity on how many complaints, if at all, have been logged on this matter since its adoption, and finally an understanding of the implications of maintaining the bylaw as is versus reverting back potentially to the old bylaw, and if Commissioner Whittemore would like to provide a comment on that.
Through the chair to the chair. So yes, about maybe around 2 years ago, we implemented a new zoning provision for accessory buildings. And that was as a result of a lot of those applications going to committee of adjustment. And they were being approved at committee of adjustment, so we made that change. But like all things, we always want to make sure that these changes are working appropriately. So I'm happy to look into that to see if there are other complaints around this issue. It may actually be of good timing too, given the direction that the province has instituted with respect to 3 units per lot. We'll have to understand what that's going to do as it relates to these accessory buildings as well. So I'm happy to bring back a report in the future on that.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. There are a couple of residents in Ward 4 who I imagine are listening right now, and they will ask, I'm sure, after the meeting, when could they and myself and members of the committee here expect potentially a report to come back at?
That report probably won't take too long because it's pretty recent that we delivered that, so I would suggest sometime probably in October.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Okay, and on to other business and announcements. Councillor Parrish, beginning.
I have 2 announcements. Canada's basketball team beat Slovenia 100-89. I have been watching these games, and you get fairly hysterical. That last one was a killer against Spain. I thought I was going to die. I used to play basketball because I'm so short, and it's a sport I really, really enjoy watching. Anyway, our team is really doing us proud. We're now going into the Olympics, and I'm pretty excited. Secondly, the Bank of Canada announced today no interest rate increases. So we've hit that spot, guys.
Councillor Tejo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know Councillor Dasko and I will be doing a lot of walking these couple of weekends. This coming weekend, Strides for Solidarity Walkathon for Ukraine. It's a 5K walk that starts at 10 a.m. at Lakeside Park. So if you're available for that walk for Ukraine, please join us at 10 a.m. In solidarity. The following Saturday, we are also walking for the Compass, and that'll, I'm sure we'll share more information about that as well. But as everyone knows, the need for the food bank is continues to rise, and everything we can do to support that would be greatly appreciated. This Thursday, we have a movie night in the community, one of the last ones. It'll be Super Mario Brothers. Everyone loves that in White Oaks Park. That's it. Thank you.
Councillor Dasko.
Thank you through the chair, and thanks, Councillor Tejo, for mentioning the walks coming up. Both great causes. The Compass Walk, that's one that has not stopped, pandemic or not, and it went to a virtual format. People could do the walk on their own. They found a way, always find ways to help raise money for just a wonderful organization that's doing incredible work. Coming up this weekend, fingers crossed for some good weather, because we do have the 25th annual Southside Shuffle, which is a great signal towards the end of summer, albeit, but it is an awesome one, and this is going to be just an amazing event. So if anybody happens to be around or looking for something to do this weekend, the Southside Shuffle is definitely the place to be.
Councillor Demerla.
Thank you, and I just want to say that the Taste of Cooksville is back, not 25th, Councillor Dasko, only the 2nd, but we'll get there. So I want to invite all of my fellow councillors to the opening ceremony. You will get formal invitations. Would love to see everybody there. The BI is doing an amazing job. It's the first time the BI is doing it, because the first one my office had organized. So looking forward to it. It's been so great to have them do everything, and I just have to show up. But I'm really looking forward to the Taste of Cooksville. So that's September 16th on Saturday from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. And I'm going to ask all my councillors, fellow councillors, to please come for 10:45 for the opening ceremony. There will be cake, if that's enough incentive. And of course, you can enjoy. And the BI has planned an amazing, marvelous festival. There's midway games, and there's all sorts of things. And of course, great food. 30+ restaurants participating, which is amazing. So that's my announcement for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Demerla. I think Councillor Hornig perked up when he heard the word cake. So he's on next.
I absolutely did, Mr. Chair. I show up anywhere there's cake, pretty much. I deeply enjoy that, so I'm looking forward to that, Councillor Demerla. Thank you for the invitation. I just wanted to give a shout out to my fellow colleagues who came with me and our delegation to the Association of Ontario Municipalities and the staff who supported us this summer. It was 2.5 days of intensive meetings with other municipalities, 444 from across the province, and also, of course, the provincial government. And it was an absolute whirlwind of meetings. We met with everyone from finance, the Attorney General, infrastructure, education, on a whole large host of issues to talk about the city's priorities. And I have to say, I felt like a real team. Councillor Butt, Councillor Demerla, Councillor Mahoney, Councillor Tejo, all of us, I think, did very well in representing the city. I felt like we had real discussions with the province. We presented our point of view. We actually had a discussion, which I understand in some cases does not always happen. In a number of cases, we did walk away with some things to do, and we certainly gave them a bunch of things to do. So that was all, I think, very positive, and I think we should be proud of how this city was represented at the province by this group of councillors. So thank you all for coming, and I think, I'm looking forward to going back in future years, because I thought it was very productive. I also thought it was very productive to talk to a lot of mayors and councillors from across Ontario and kind of hear either similarities or differences about what's happening in their communities. The two things that I'd kind of point out in the Bear Pit session with all the ministers that kind of got the loudest applause was one, the Bill 23 and the challenges that's presented to all cities on revenue. And this council has been a leader, and I heard that from other municipalities saying that Mississauga did stick its head up and lobby hard for that. And subsequently, when our conversation with the finance minister said, they're thinking about responding after the audit. So that was positive. There's a bit of motion there. The second one was about, councillor integrity. And, there's been a motion from a private member at the provincial level several times now, Bill number 5, to talk about how councillors interact with each other, interact with the public, and interact with staff. And, a lot of councils across the province have had problems. And when a councillor who obviously had had some difficulties herself from another jurisdiction, another municipality, got up and asked the minister about it, it was standing ovation. It was by far the largest reaction of all municipalities on that issue, and it was really interesting to see the unanimous thoughts that we do need to improve the culture about how we interact with each other, we interact with the public, and then the public interacts with us. So I thought that was quite heartening. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have an action-packed weekend in Ward 9. Meadowvale has a couple of events happening. One of them is the community ride that has been happening all throughout from May to October. So finally, it's going to be at the Meadowvale Community Center. City of Mississauga, in partnership with Toronto Pearson, is hosting a series of free in-person bike rides from May to October. This is a perfect way to explore your neighborhood on bike and meet new people. Rides are designed for a variety of distances, and riders are all welcome. So that's this Saturday morning. There's some more details. Saturday, September 9th from 10 till 1. And then on Sunday, Meadowvale Theatre is doing their open house. So that is Sunday, September 10th from 1 till 3. And step in, take a close look at Meadowvale Theatre and participate in a variety of activities. You can meet the artists, you can listen to live music. We have an ice cream truck there. You can buy tickets for the upcoming season as well. So some fun events happening, so I wanted to bring that to your attention.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. Councillor Parrish.
I hesitate to talk about this because my milk fund is so oversold, I'm putting people in funny little seats hanging from the top of the tent, but it's totally sold out, 325 guests. The gross revenue is $313,000. Last year we sent out 42 checks to various organizations, mostly with kids and food banks. But I really want to thank all my colleagues because everybody stepped up to the plate and bought tickets, and it's really nice to have you all there. And you'll be introduced that night, and Jake Deere will announce you weren't there as guests, you all bought your own tickets. So there was a certain counselor at the table wanted me to make sure that was said clearly. But it's really going to be great, and I'm looking at the long-range forecast, and it's clear. And we have actually two horses and a buggy there if you want to go for a ride. We've got all kinds of excitement and fireworks. So I'm not encouraging any more people to look for tickets because we don't have any. But it's really been well-sponsored, well-supported this year. And we're really going to be able to help a lot of people. And I thank all my colleagues.
Thank you, Councillor Parrish. And when you said funny little seats from the top of the tent, how could we not be enticed by that? I think people would want to know what that looks like. What is that? But when Councillor Mahoney earlier referenced your strong fundraising abilities, I'm sure he had this in mind in particular. Kudos on a job, again, well done, for raising as much money as you do every year for such a good cause. If there are no other comments at this time, we will move on to the there are no notices of motion, so it would be closed session. And if that works for everyone, I will read the following motion. Whereas the Municipal Act of 2001, as amended, requires council to pass a motion prior to closing part of a meeting to the public. And whereas the act requires that the motion states the act of the holding of the closed meeting and the general nature of the matter to be considered at the closed meeting. Now therefore be it resolved that a portion of the general committee meeting to be held on this day, September 6, 2023, shall be closed to the public to deal with the following matters. Pursuant to section 239, subsection 2 of the Municipal Act 2001, 17.1, information explicitly supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board by Canada, a province or territory, or a crown agency of any of them, dash update on Peel transition. If I had to give a rough estimate, I would say about 45 minutes, so we'll be back roughly in 45 minutes. Can I have somebody move? Councillor Butt, all in favor? And that does carry. Okay, we'll be back in about 45. Back from an closed session meeting, and we have a recommendation before us as a committee that council adopt the recommendations and directions to staff outlined in the report titled Update on Peel Transition, dated August 28, 2023, from the City Manager and Chief Administrative Officer, moved by Councillor Hornick, All those in favor? We will vote, record it. And that passes unanimously. All we'll need now to do is adjournment. If we have a member, Councillor.
Excuse me, Councillor Kovac.
Oh, my apologies, Councillor McFadden. Okay,
That's fine. I was having a hard time getting back into the original meeting, but I'm in favor as well.
Thank you. We will make mention of that. Duly noted. Okay, adjournment has been called by Councillor Butt. Thank you again. Have a great afternoon.